Hey guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. You know why you're here. It is Man of Medan analysis part 2. So let's get straight into it. So of course we start off with Julia and Alex. They're having a bit of a chinwag on the Duke of Milan after the proposal, or if they're what you might be, they're no proposal. So obviously in my playthrough, mate, everything's hunky-dory. They're engaged now. So there's a lot of love in the air between these two. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, all good. I've done playthroughs where they're not, and it's pretty funny. Like I said in the last one, better in my opinion, because there's a different dynamic. But yeah, like on my first playthrough, all was good.
Sweet. And you know what? There's a quote that I'm going to raise here. It could be me absolutely clutching at straws, but while I've been, going back through this game, I've been looking for Easter eggs like I did in sort of part 1 with the curator's sort of music video style entrance. We found stuff on The Devil in Me, but Julia said something here. It was something like falling through a dimension in time. I think she then goes on to say with like barnacles and sharks or something, of course referring to the fact they were just underwater. But obviously we know we've got Directive 8020 coming up with like this whole space theme. The fact that she chose sort of falling through a dimension, I don't know, it could be clutching at straws, but I was thinking, is that like a slight hint at maybe an element of the plot in Directive 8020? The only reason I say, I know again this is jumping forward a bit, but I know that in Man of Medan, Connor says something when they're looking at like Conrad, they're looking at like the coffins, and he says about like baby Draculas being in them, and of course that could be like a slight hint to House of Ashes, so I thought I'd raise it. But yeah, moving on from here, so like we have another moment, don't we? Again, in my playthrough I didn't necessarily see this, and when I did hear about it I was low-key surprised, and it goes to show like how strong the branching is in Man of Medan. But did you know, mate, that Fliss and Conrad can actually be like making out like when you go down into the main bit of the boat?
Yeah, you know what? It happened to me, and I was a little aggrieved with it because it's weird. How do I say this? Like, I don't ship them. I just didn't really get it. But like when I had the interactions with them, I was nice because, like I say, I wanted everyone to be on the same page. So it was like, do you want to be an absolute dick to this person, or do you want to be nice? So I was like, I'll be nice. And apparently that translates to a romantic angle's being created. I think the reason I wasn't a fan of it is because I think it kind of goes against Fliss's character arc. Like, Fliss is this quite serious person who like doesn't want them getting into trouble. And then just a few lines with Conrad, and she's just making out with him, even though like she seemed pretty resentful about the whole money stunt. I don't know, I didn't like that. That's, one criticism I have with this thing.
I didn't buy it either, and also the fact that it doesn't really go anywhere either. Like, I mean, I know you've got a romantic partnership in Alex and Julia, at least on paper, already. I don't think it needed another one. I mean, obviously it was, I think it was a good way to showcase the branching, like I said, but yeah, like, didn't really understand like why. I mean, there was no purpose to it. It didn't carry on anywhere, at least. I don't think it does affect sort of like the characters going forward in the story, but
I feel like with The Devil in Me, that has 2 potential romantic angles, and it shows how you can effectively do it. One's kind of like a new kindled one, one's one with history, a bit like this one. But at least with Jamie and Erin's one, it made sense because it can link to the finale scene at the shore. This one, like you say, nothing happens with it, and it's just, I didn't like it.
Yeah, so obviously then the group, they go to start drinking beers, didn't they? There is obviously a little moment here, obviously going back to Julia coming up from decompressing or not decompressing. I know in my playthrough, I chose to sort of stay calm. I didn't rush up quickly, so I'm pretty sure that I just took the alcohol. I was like completely fine, but no, I mean, I don't know what happened with you, mate, but I'm pretty sure that if you don't decompress and then you go to take the beer, I'm pretty sure, is it like Alex comes in and says like, whoa, like you shouldn't be drinking that, like you didn't decompress before. Well, yeah, what happened, for you in that bit?
I'm pretty sure you're given a choice, and Conrad's like, go on, have a beer, as Conrad of course would. But Alex is like, no, you shouldn't. You decompress properly. And me being me, absolute studyholic, I was in the pause menus. I saw there was like one of those, like, in Until Dawn we'd say the butterfly effects. In this one, it's kind of like, you get the little choices or whatever. And it tells you, it's probably, I shouldn't do it because it kind of spoils about which choices actually matter. But it had like, oh, you didn't decompress properly. And then like the story was still to be told. There was some black options that needed filling in. So I was like, yeah, I think that has an effect. So I'm not going to have a beer, which obviously is right. It's the right thing to do. But because I didn't decompress, I decided to avoid alcohol. So yeah, I'm glad I did that because I'm sure we'll get into what happens if you do.
Yeah, sweet. I mean, obviously we now move on to like the whole ghost story section, right? Which I think was really cool. I mean, we've spoke about this already, but it is a nice nod to the devil in me. I mean, I know I spoke last time about how Julia refers to Conrad as Connie, which of course, is a reference to the dog in The Devil in Me. But we get another one here, and he's telling this ghost story about lighthouse, and then there's like a guy with an axe, and there's a murder and stuff like this. Like there are like little breadcrumbs in there, which going back to play through, it's like really nice to see that sort of like these things were hinted at, and that's why I was so alert before about the whole falling through dimensions quote, because I was thinking it could be something for Perspective 8020. But yeah, I mean, nicely done. There's not much else to really talk about here, apart from there's the dialogue choices where you can say whether you thought it was a good story or not. But I think really it's when the pirates come on board that the game takes it up a notch, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I just want to also add that the ghost story also had that saying about a meat hook and someone was hung from the rafters.
Oh yeah.
And that's a really cool one, because obviously that is how I eventually killed Charlie in The Devil in Me. So I love that we can look back at these games and then look at the new ones that come out and find these little Easter eggs. They're so good at writing supermassive games that almost no dialogue is wasted. Like, everything is planned to the T. And I just have to tip my hat to that. I thought it's incredible.
But yeah, of course, we then get our band of three as the pirates come on board, that being Olsen, Danny and Junior. And they essentially take control of the Duke of Milan, don't they? And I've got a quote here that I absolutely love. It's Junior when he says, "Hey, dipstick, shut the fuck up." He's like a very rude Del boy. Like, if anyone in the UK knows Only Fools and Horses, it was almost something like he would say. But yeah, I mean, it's a good scene. I mean, I feel like one comment I'm going to add here is that, I mean, if you've seen our Man of Medan versus Little Hope debate, then you'll know this already, but I would say that this whole opening section, pacing wise, it does hurt. I know like they are incrementally like upping the tension and the horror, but I think because of the length of these games is what they are, I feel like they needed to get to the this whole section maybe a little bit more quickly, or maybe even just, I don't know if you could like scrap it or whatever, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, they needed to get to the ship a bit more quickly, because I feel like this game's maybe like 4 hours long. It takes you like a good half of that time to get to the Man of Medan. I don't know what your thinking is on that, mate.
Yeah, like, I know what you mean, especially like you mentioned replayability. It's very difficult, especially when you have to go back through the scuba diving sections again. Yeah, so like, it's a little slow. I didn't mind it so much. Easter egg thing as well is that doesn't Conrad have a vest with Salem written on it, which is of course Little Hope. So yeah, there's just so many Easter eggs being littered here. One of the most significant things that we really get in this like kind of like room with this pirates while you're locked there is Alex starts suspecting Fliss because of the ID. Now, you mentioned it in the last episode that you wonder what the relevance was there, but yeah, like, I saw it and was like, yeah, she could be involved. She's not like linked with the family or whatever. So it was really interesting. But as soon as Alex mentions that, I was like, okay, so it's a red herring. They wouldn't reveal it that early. I don't know if you thought a similar thing, mate.
Yeah, and I think another part of my logic as well was that would they make a playable character someone in league with the the pirates? I mean, obviously we've seen it before with Heavy Rain, right, where you can literally have a playable character that's the killer, right? But no, they've never really dabbled in that in the supermassive world. You know, you don't play as Josh, do you? Before he's the psycho. You always play once he's been revealed as the psycho, and even then you don't play as him for very long. It's just like a couple of walking scenes. So yeah, like I didn't think that there was too much to it. But again, it's a shame that it didn't really go anywhere. Like I remember when we did our like character tier list, I think we put Fliss sort of like midway through our ranking. And do you know what I mean? If she had, whether there was a bit more with Conrad in the romance, or this whole, you know, is she a fraud or not? You know what I mean? It might have bumped her up a little bit. So I feel like there's a potential story strand there that was a missed opportunity. Obviously, we then come to this bit after some untying and things where the group decide, you know what, let's try and get Conrad out of here on the speedboat to escape. And I've got to say, I really like this bit. I like the fact there's an achievement for it as well that requires a little bit of brain work. I mean, I didn't actually get it first time, but naturally in repeat playthroughs I saw that it was a possibility. But you just got to time the bang with the lightning, don't you? You got to hit it on 6 seconds, which I thought was really cool.
I think you have to be pretty savvy with it as well, because it goes from 8 to 7, so then it's 6, right? So like you have to kind of have the knowledge to know that the lightning gets closer. So like, because I remember when I went to get it, I went for 7 seconds, I think it was, so I missed it. And then yeah, like I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. So yeah, I don't think I actually ever got that trophy, because I only really played the game once or twice, and I don't think I ever, like the second time I wasn't controlling Conrad, and the first time I missed it. So yeah, that is a trophy that I still don't have to this day, actually.
But yeah, I mean, of course, like, you know, there's a potential here for him escape, in which case we don't see him right until the end. There's a potential for him to fail the heartbeat sequence and then get caught. But even then, I'm pretty sure, like, at least it happened in my playthrough, where you then, you get behind Junior or Danny, you've got like a knife held to him. And even then, like, you have the option to take the gun from Olsen, or you can then try and escape again. Then, of course, there's the option where he can get on the speedboat, you fail the QTE, and you can die. And just, again, like another comment on like how fantastic the branching is this early on in Man of Medan. Do you know what I mean? Like, talking about like where we've covered Twin Mirror of late, mate, where like choices don't matter until the end. Whereas with this game, like within the first couple of hours, like you're making choices, and it's the same with like Julia of the whole decompression, where it genuinely matters. I feel like, you know, Man of Medan gets dogged on a little bit, and I don't know, I'm trying to give it a little bit of love, because I do think that there are some like really good things to merit here with like the whole, you know, branching.
I completely agree. It's such good writing that you can have this variation where like the game, you know, like Conrad can be taken out the game this early. We have it with, say, like Kara and Quantic Dream, as we always like to mention. And here, yeah, Conrad, this is literally like the second chapter, but at that, they're really short chapters. Like, this is going to be quite a tiny episode itself. So, like, yeah, the fact that Conrad can die this early, you know, that's amazing, right? Because you can miss out on the Sailor Girl scene, right? That is incredible to me. So yeah, obviously, like Conrad can get like overcome by the pirates on the board there, but like that's if you jump for the gun, right? Because you can also potentially escape as Conrad, where he can die, right? So I just wanted to get like the vision on you. Like, what did you do in your playthrough? Did you go for the gun, or did you try to escape on the ship?
I'm pretty sure I went for the gun, because I mean I know that obviously I'm remembering back, I know that Conrad definitely made it to the ship. I'm pretty sure I didn't fail any of the QTEs, but it was just like when it gave you the option to like escape or not in the first place, I was like, do I really want to abandon everyone? Obviously, to the game's credit, like I was so surprised that when the guy could actually escape, but I was like, you know what, I don't necessarily want to abandon everyone. I'm guessing that's what my logic was, but yeah, he ultimately stayed on the Duke of Milan anyway.
Yeah, I escaped. I was like, yeah, let's get him out of there. So yeah, I just got on, like, succeeded all the QTEs, and Conrad left the party, possibly to look for help. So Yeah, like I had a game without Conrad, which was really interesting. And we'll get into it in the last chapter about why that could potentially be a bad thing. You know, it's kind of like a bit of a weird ending that I got from that. But yeah, no, super interesting that from this point onwards, I have a party of 4 and not 5. And it's not because of a death. But I think that's really unique and cool, and really hats off to Man of Medan, because yeah, I just was really sold by that kind of story strand, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think obviously we then go on from here, and obviously, naturally, the pirates sort of overcome you and win. Also, I'm pretty sure as well, I've seen this, again, do correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I think a character can get shot here. I think it's Julia. Not shot as in, like, dead. Maybe shot as, like, injured. Might be remembering that wrong, but like if you do a couple of wrong dialogue things between Alex and Olsen, I think it can get someone injured at least. But then of course they then go back downstairs, and there's a little bit more suspicion on Fliss because she keeps getting taken away. Then we do play as Fliss in this point, and you get in touch with the Coast Guard, don't you? I'll just be interested to know, mate, like when Olsen gave you the radio, did you toe the line, or did you try and tell the Coast Guard that, something bad was going down on the Duke of Milan?
I played into the hands of the pirates. I always feel like they're holding the cards. I'm not going to aggravate them. I'm going to give them what they want, and we can escape at a more opportune moment. I just was like, yeah, I've got to give them what they want at this point.
Yeah, honestly, I was the exact same, because I think literally at this point the only supermassive game I'd played was Until Dawn. So naturally my expectations were very high, and of course you know how early decisions in that game can have huge consequences later on. So going back to the summer of 2019 playing this game, I was very much sat there like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to toe the line, I'm going to play it safe for a while, and then you find out in later playthroughs that you can get away with certain decisions and such. But of course then Storm hits. There's a couple of nice QTEs here. I know I said in the last episode about how maybe in terms of heartbeat sequences, a criticism is that you're tapping the same 2 buttons each time. There's not variation there. Admittedly, there's a couple of QTEs here where you are really having to tap like different buttons, like whether for me on the Xbox it's like A and then B and then Y and then X, like it's keeping you on your toes. You're not sat there going, oh yeah, it's probably going to come up B, and then you just tap B. So I don't know if it was the same for you. I imagine it was on PlayStation at the time, mate, but do you remember that at all? Like,
I'm sorry, but no, actually. Yeah, it was quite some time ago. But yeah, I just remember getting through the QuickTime events like fairly easily. But yeah, like it wasn't as bad as other supermassive games. So yeah, like I remember thinking like taking it in stride, not exactly, being, aggrieved or annoyed by the QuickTime events at this point. So yeah, it did fairly well at it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like shortly after this, the group, their backs, obviously, it's going to get drowned. They'll drown in there if they stay in the sort of the belly of the boat. But there's another important choice here, and it's whether you keep Brad hidden on the boat, or whether you bring him up top because you worry that he's gonna ultimately drown. What did you do, mate?
I kept him hidden. I was like, yeah, like they don't know where Brad is. Brad, quite a savvy guy, like Alex being rude to him, scared, but this guy's like hiding. Good on him. I was like, yeah, that is a card we hold that they don't. An interesting thing as well, we talked about the pirates potentially scouting them earlier. They only saw Fliss and Conrad on the ship, right?
Yeah.
So like obviously they're surprised that they found Julia and Alex. They're like, oh, there's 4 of them. But they don't know about Brad because Brad was like, passed out from like the 1 beer he had earlier. So yeah, like they don't know Brad exists. So yeah, I kept him hidden. I just was like, yeah, that's such a good playing card there. How about you?
Yeah, no, honestly, exact same logic, mate. I was thinking he could be a wild card. He could come into use later on, whether it was to get help or whatever. So I thought it was just smart. And also as well, like, I mean, like he's literally potentially your one route out of there. Why would you give him away? Like, unless it got very serious with the water levels, do you know what I mean? You'd think keep Sturm, like this guy could ultimately help you out. So yeah, I mean, obviously after that we have a cinematic cutscenes with the Duke of Milan smashing into the side of the Orang Medan, and I mean, and then next thing you know, you brought about a curator scene. So like this part sort of felt very short, I've got to say. And I mean, the curator, you know, it's great having scenes with him. You can get the hint off him, can't you? He says something about the Manchurian gold. I think it's like a Shakespeare quote. Oh, actually, I've got it written here. It says, "All that glistens is not gold. Often has that been told." And I don't know, mate. Like, obviously, we guessed what was going on from the get-go because of like the prologue and stuff. Looking back with hindsight, do you think that maybe the hints were a little bit too easy?
A little bit. I think it didn't, like I mentioned in the last episode though, mate, the game didn't give itself any favours with the fact that I kind of clocked what happened in the prologue. I was like, well, yeah, that's going to be that gas thing, so like it's going to be toxic. So like I kind of like, yeah, like I didn't really need that extra clue, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure in my first playthrough I didn't want help anyway, but like when I've been replaying it, like for the purposes of this video, you know, I thought, you know what, I'll ask for the hint. And then when I've heard it, I was like, God, yeah, like it's, you know. And I think he then goes on to say that everything isn't as it seems, and he like picks a book out the shelf, and it's just an empty book with like a flask for like a drink or something in it. So I was like, oh yeah, like this, you know, it is like helping the player quite a lot here, but my detriment, spoiler alert, I still didn't keep everyone alive, so you know. So yeah, obviously another thing that the curator says is that you managed to keep everyone alive, and I guess almost like to wrap up this video, it would be good to just almost acknowledge like what we've sort of covered already, but I just find it amazing, like we've not even reached the Orang Medan yet, and Conrad could potentially have died. And you could potentially have confirmed the fate of Julia as well with the whole decompression alcohol thing. So, like, I think he does tell you that, you know, if you fucked up, he'll be like, there'll be decisions that you regret. I think in my playthrough, he was like, everyone's still alive, you're doing great. But do you know what I mean? Like, they've not even reached the ship yet. And that's like 2 of the cast confirmed. Of course, in your one, Conrad escaped. And obviously you had Brad. So like you're literally going on the boat as like just a team of 3. Like I just find like the variation in it absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's incredible because it's the kind of thing where someone might have a story arc like Conrad, and instead they'll get rid of him and someone else will take his place. So yeah, like there's a lot of switch, chops and changes with Man of Medan. That's really impressive story writing. So yeah, like, yeah, no, honestly, just loving it. Like, love, you know, like it's a hindsight thing really, because you don't really realize how impressive Man of Medan is until you finish it and you do multiple playthroughs on top of that.
There we go, guys. I mean, that is literally Man of Medan analysis part 2. It was a quick one this week, but of course we know that next week we will be getting on board the Orang Medan. So until then, we will see you then.
Thank you guys. We'll see you in the next one.